Bishop Jakes was at a Diddy party, there could only be two reasons: money or
And then we said, but did you pay her fairly? And then he said, I paid her more than she's ever made. Remember when I said earlier, I've never seen so many cowards and black men in this business? I would have to put my brother Tyler Perry in that.
Hey, Bishop Jakes, how are you?
What's up, man?
Man, it's so good to see you.
It's better to see you. How you doing?
It's just real strange that he would be found at any kind of Diddy party or any kind of place with Diddy unless it's in a business atmosphere. So now what he's doing is he's making the Christians look real bad right about now.
Hollywood sells us dreams, red carpets, flashing lights, billion-dollar studios, and the promise that talent and hard work are all it takes to succeed. But behind that glossy picture lies a very different reality. It's a story told by those who were chewed up by the very system they helped build. And today, those voices are louder than ever. This isn't just about Monique. Yes, she lit a spark when she exposed how powerful men in Hollywood tried to silence her and underpay her. But her story is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. For years, Katt Williams has been dropping warnings, pointing out that the real power brokers in the industry aren't always who they claim to be. He has called out figures like Tyler Perry and Bishop T.D. Jakes, not for shock value, but because he says he's seen how deep the manipulation runs. And he's never been afraid to stand in the fire with nothing but truth as his defense. He's not alone. Gene Deal has pulled back the curtain on the music industry, detailing what really happened behind the cameras and contracts. Jaguar Wright has put her career and safety on the line to expose what the public was never meant to know about some of entertainment's most carefully protected stars. Together, their voices reveal a consistent theme: the dream that Hollywood sells often comes at the expense of those who dare to demand fairness, honesty, and respect.
Like, yeah, daddy, like when he started all that daddy this and daddy that, and then I heard some hollering and struggling, like, yeah, I kept the phone.
Each of these voices has faced smear campaigns, blackballing, and threats. Yet their stories align. The same names keep surfacing, the same tactics keep being exposed. Different industries, different lanes, but the patterns are identical. When their testimonies are placed side by side, the bigger picture is impossible to ignore. This isn't about grudges or gossip. It's about control, power, and a system that rewards silence while punishing truth-tellers. Tyler Perry and T.D. Jakes have built empires on carefully curated public images. But what happens when those empires are challenged from every direction at once? How long can the polished smiles hold when the receipts continue to stack up? For years, figures like Perry and Jakes have stood in the spotlight, celebrated as proof that hard work and faith can break barriers. They have positioned themselves as symbols of success, as leaders and role models within the community, men who inspired millions to believe that greatness was attainable. But what happens when the very people tasked with leading by example are accused of hiding the darkest secrets? That question is exactly why voices like Jaguar Wright and Monique have shaken the table so powerfully. Their testimonies force the public to look beyond the image and confront the possibility that what has been sold as hope may, in fact, be something very different.
Why would we need a 50-foot bed?
I mean, T.D. Jakes ain't small. I'm just saying. If it's a group thing, it's a group thing. You gotta think about, you got Rick Ross, you got Khaled, we talk about heavy hitters.
She is not whispering. She is not hiding. Monique is coming forward with receipts, with proof, and with a fearlessness that makes men like Tyler Perry and T.D. Jakes deeply uncomfortable. For years, they could brush off criticism and protect their polished images. But now, every time Monique speaks, those images begin to crack. T.D. Jakes has built himself into far more than a preacher. He is the face of modern black spirituality, a pastor whose sermons go viral, whose books top bestseller lists, whose productions reach film and television, and whose services are broadcast nationally, even on platforms like Revolt. His influence extends well beyond the pulpit of the Potter's house. He has shaken hands with presidents, sat with kings, and stood shoulder to shoulder with celebrities. For decades, his name carried weight in both religious and secular spaces. That is why his sudden, quiet resignation sent shockwaves. When someone with that level of power steps away without warning, people inevitably begin connecting dots. And sure enough, figures like Katt Williams, Nique, and Jaguar Wright are doing exactly that. They aren't buying the polished press statements about health or new ventures. According to them, this wasn't a graceful retirement at all, it was a forced exit. As one put it, Bishop Jakes was pushed out before things could get messy, and the mess in question connects directly to the man dominating headlines, Sean Diddy Combs. Diddy's legal troubles have been mounting for years. Lawsuits from women, former employees, and insiders have cracked open the door on long-whispered rumors. The most explosive development came when producer Rodney Lil Rod Jones filed a nearly 100-page federal lawsuit accusing Diddy of violent and abusive behavior. Buried within that filing was a detail that immediately drew attention, the mention of Bishop Jakes. Though not named as a defendant, Jakes appeared in the narrative. According to Jones, when Cassie Ventura filed her high-profile case against Diddy, the music mogul scrambled for damage control and allegedly leaned on Jakes. The lawsuit claims Diddy sought out Jakes precisely because of his credibility, spiritual authority, and influence, qualities that could help soften Diddy's image in the public eye. That single connection was enough to spark speculation. Because the moment your name appears in a federal filing, no matter how indirectly, you're in the splash zone. And once the internet caught hold, old clips and receipts began to resurface, fueling the fire even further.
He said to me, and then it's on the internet. He's doing all of this, right? And then there's a woman on the day.
One of the clips that sparked the most conversation was footage of Bishop T.D. Jakes at Diddy's 53rd birthday party in Los Angeles. This wasn't a brief handshake and exit. The video showed Jakes mingling, smiling, and appearing completely at ease among a crowd of A-list celebrities dressed in luxury. Of course, prominent figures attend celebrity parties all the time. But Diddy's gatherings have long carried a particular reputation, events whispered about for their excess, indulgence, and behavior far removed from church pews and Sunday sermons. So when a bishop of Jakes' stature is seen there, looking comfortable, the questions practically ask themselves. Jakes' team moved quickly to get ahead of the narrative. Katt Williams, executive vice president of T.D. Jakes Enterprises, issued a statement insisting the bishop was only in Los Angeles for meetings and merely stopped by to wish Diddy a happy birthday. According to Williams, it was nothing more than a respectful visit and a swift exit, but not everyone is convinced. Critics argue that if the goal was to avoid controversy, stepping into one of the most notorious celebrity events of the year was the last thing he should have done. And then, almost on cue, Jakes made his sudden announcement, stepping down from leadership. No scandal, no public fallout, just a clean, quiet exit. The timing, however, has been difficult to ignore. His resignation arrived just as Diddy's legal troubles escalated, just as Jakes' name began circulating in connection with federal filings, and just as old clips and social media posts resurfaced. To many, the official story of coincidence feels like a hard sell, adding fuel to the fire. Former bad boy bodyguard Gene Deal, never known for holding back, has had plenty to say about Jakes. Deal has been blunt about what he sees as a glaring contradiction between the bishop's image as a spiritual leader and the circles he allegedly moves in.
Would have been swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Have you gone through a time of swallowing where everything was overwhelmed?
In Gene Deal's words, the saints are supposed to be separated from the sinners. Yet, he points out, Bishop Jakes has been spotted at some of the same notorious parties linked to Diddy, events Deal himself has described as overflowing with alcohol, excess, and outright debauchery. For someone who presents himself as a shepherd of souls, Deal argues, what business does Jakes have being in those environments at all unless he is either participating in or enabling what takes place behind closed doors?
Why would you find a religious man, when you know that the saints supposed to separate themselves from the sinners, and why would a religious man like himself be at a party which ain't nothing but sin that's going on, bro? Whether it's drinking, maybe fornicating, maybe, like I said, men on men, women on women. It's hard to put in perspective unless he's involving himself what is actually going on at the parties. It's hard, brother. Bro, you can't, I really don't know why as a spiritual advisor to him, that they buddy while he got a party with him like that and be at his parties. It's got to be, maybe it's something more that
Gene Deal has attended Diddy's infamous white parties in the Hamptons and has spoken openly about what takes place there. In the early days, he says, secrecy was the rule. Private rooms concealed what was really happening. But over time, discretion faded. Encounters between men, women, and celebrity guests became more blatant, carried out in plain view with little concern for who might be watching. For Deal, the troubling part is not simply the excess itself, but the presence of someone like Bishop Jakes in those environments. In his view, a pastor of Jakes' stature should not only avoid such spaces altogether, but actively denounce them. Instead, he argues, Jakes' proximity raises serious red flags. The scrutiny doesn't end there. Jakes' own household has faced public controversies. One of his sons was reportedly arrested in a Dallas park known for illicit activity, while both of his adopted sons have openly identified as part of the LGBTQ community. Deal stresses that he holds no personal issue with people's private choices, but questions the contradiction. How can a pastor whose own household has been touched by scandal credibly serve as a moral compass for millions? As Deal bluntly puts it, if you cannot keep your own house in order, how can you guide?
I've talked to preachers and I've talked to reverends and priests, but they ain't never came to a party with me or nothing like that. So it's hard to figure that one out, bruh, without even saying, what people might be thinking. But I heard that there's supposed to be some tapes or something that's coming out real soon, and I guess we'll all really know the truth if anything's on those tapes.
Gene Deal has gone a step further, hinting that tapes may soon surface, tapes that could expose even more about Bishop Jakes and the circles he has chosen to move in. For Deal, the picture is straightforward. The bishop's carefully crafted image of holiness is being chipped away by private actions that reek of compromise, hypocrisy, and cover-ups, and Gene is not the only one raising these concerns. Comedian Katt Williams has long been one of the loudest voices calling out what he sees as Bishop Jakes' double life. Years before these recent conversations, Williams made it clear that he did not buy into Jakes' polished persona of spiritual authority. In his view, there is a disturbing pattern within the entertainment industry where pastors and spiritual leaders align themselves with powerful moguls, not to save souls, but to secure influence, money, and access. And to Williams, Jakes fits that mold perfectly. Through interviews and stand-up sets, Williams has hinted at the bishop's troubling proximity to questionable figures and events. He has argued that true men of God would never blur those lines, especially not in environments allegedly steeped in exploitation and predatory behavior. Instead of condemning such spaces, Williams suggests Jakes appears comfortable within them, and that speaks volumes. What makes Williams' words sting is how closely they echo Deal's. Coming from different vantage points, both men are essentially asking the same question: how can a man tasked with serving as a beacon of truth and morality appear so at ease in environments dripping with sin and scandal? And why does Williams, a comedian often painted by the media as paranoid or unstable, now come across as more credible than one of the most celebrated preachers in America? The conversation has shifted. This is no longer just about a pastor's it is about what he might be running from. Nique has already promised more revelations. Diddy is drowning in lawsuits. And Bishop Jakes' quiet exit aligns a little too neatly with it all. The public is connecting the dots faster than gossip moves through Sunday pews. Something bigger is brewing, and Nique insists the receipts will prove it. What was once whispered in hushed tones is now being spoken out loud. Gossip has turned into hard talk. Nique, who has made it clear she fears no one in this industry, claims Bishop Jakes did not step away by choice. According to her, he saw a bomb about to explode and left the stage before it could blow up in his face. And what kind of bomb are we talking about? The kind that Diddy has allegedly been sitting on for years. Nique claims Diddy never partied just for pleasure, he collected everything. Screenshots, recordings, and video clips from those infamous nights, not as memories but as leverage. And now, with lawsuits piling up and his empire crumbling, there are fears that some of those files could surface. If Bishop Jakes is caught on those tapes, the fallout would go far beyond embarrassment. It could end his reputation altogether. Consider what's at stake. Jakes has spent decades positioning himself as the father figure of modern black spirituality. His sermons trend online. His books have sold millions. His conferences draw crowds like concerts. His influence stretches from the pulpit to Hollywood. The last thing a man with that kind of following wants is to be tied even indirectly to lawsuits, sex-fueled parties, or federal investigations, and then there's Gene Deal. This is not a distant critic speaking in speculation. This was Diddy's bodyguard, the man tasked with security at those very parties. He says plainly that Bishop Jakes wasn't just dropping in for a quick handshake, he was participating. And if that claim holds weight, the narrative shifts completely. A brief appearance can be explained away. Participation cannot.
You got to look at a person's household, and if your household is not in order, you understand, how you going to help somebody else get their house in order? You know, one of his sons got arrested, you know, some years ago in Dallas, you know, allegedly for being found in a park where a bunch of people that are homeless hang out and indulge in activity. And I heard his two sons, which are not his biological sons, both of them are from that LGBT community. Now, how you gonna help me straighten out my house, and to me, your house ain't in order? Not saying that something is wrong with them being and choosing that lifestyle, but something is wrong with them choosing that lifestyle, being in a household.
This is bigger than one pastor stepping down. T.D. Jakes is not just a preacher, he is a brand, a corporation, a global movement. His name is stamped on best-selling books, film projects, conferences, and ministries that span continents. That name generates not just money, but influence and credibility. And when so much is built on a polished image, a single crack, a single piece of undeniable evidence, can send the entire empire trembling. Everyone in Jake's circle knows what's at stake. His team knows it. He knows it. That's why his exit had to be carefully managed. No mention of Diddy, no back and forth with the press, just a clean, quiet step away before the spotlight grew too hot. But the problem is the fire isn't across the street anymore, it's creeping closer every day. The internet has become a crime scene unit, with people digging through old interviews, guest lists, Instagram posts, and party footage frame by frame. And as Diddy's day in court approaches, the noise only grows louder. This case is no longer just about Diddy, it's about everyone in his orbit. Anyone who showed up, anyone who stayed silent, anyone who may appear in those rumored files. When one name falls, others start tumbling too. That's why so many people are side-eyeing Jake's sudden retirement. To them, it doesn't look like rest, it looks like a man slipping quietly out the back door before the flood reaches his house. What began as a simple church announcement has spiraled into something much larger. Congregations are buzzing. Social media timelines are dissecting every detail. Even longtime supporters are looking sideways. The timing is simply too perfect. Jake steps down just as Diddy's legal troubles intensify. To critics, that's not coincidence, it's a storyline straight out of a movie. For decades, Jake's carefully built his reputation as a spiritual father figure. His sermons went viral, his books sold millions, his conferences drew stadium-sized crowds. But now, even the suggestion of a link to Diddy's chaos is enough to shake his empire. And with Gene Deal speaking out, the former bodyguard who worked the doors at those infamous parties, the allegations hit even harder. Deal isn't speculating, he claims to have seen firsthand who entered, who stayed, and what they did. According to him, Jakes wasn't merely present at Diddy's gatherings, he was involved. That changes everything. A handshake can be explained away. Participation cannot, and Jake's own words have only fueled suspicion. Instead of shutting down the rumors with a firm denial, he turned to themes of forgiveness, declaring, "The blood of Christ covers all," while insisting he had nothing to repent for. To many, that sounded like contradiction. If nothing happened, why sound like a man preparing for judgment? His half-confession, as some have called it, rattled people more than silence ever could. Clips of Jake smiling at Diddy's birthday party now circulate side by side with his fiery sermons on sin and discipline. Supporters are asking themselves, which version is real? Is he truly the preacher of discipline and faith, Or is that image simply branding layered over another lifestyle? Even the official statements haven't helped. Jake's team insisted his appearance at Diddy's party was strictly business and brief. But many find that explanation unconvincing. Why that party? Why that man? Why step into a space infamous for indulgence and scandal if your entire ministry preaches the opposite? That doesn't look like a lapse in judgment. That looks like a choice, and the internet isn't buying ignorance from someone as media savvy and calculated as T.D. Jakes, nor is Jakes the only figure under scrutiny. Tyler Perry, long celebrated as a trailblazer who built his own Hollywood empire, faces mounting criticism of his own. Behind the billion-dollar studios and uplifting headlines, former collaborators describe a very different story, one of control, exploitation, and broken promises. The controversy over Perry's writers is just one example. When the team behind one of his most successful shows pushed for union contracts and fair treatment, Perry reportedly cut ties instead of negotiating. These were creatives who had helped build his empire, producing hundreds of episodes that generated millions. Yet when money and recognition were on the line, they were shown the door. Some writers later spoke out, calling Perry's move a betrayal, a slap in the face after years of loyalty and hard work. And they weren't alone. Actors and crew members have quietly described working conditions that felt more punishing than rewarding, grueling schedules, little creative freedom, and a culture where speaking up was met with consequences. On the surface, Perry frames himself as the ultimate champion of black storytelling. But behind the curtain, many see a much darker picture. Monique's decision to call him out didn't create this controversy, it poured gasoline on a fire that had been smoldering for years. What once looked like a few isolated complaints is now starting to resemble a consistent pattern. The man hailed as a door opener may also be one of the very people closing doors on anyone who dares to challenge him.
These parties, right?
Oh yeah, I was there when he was doing the white parties in the Hamptons and the whole 9 yards, so I know what goes on at the parties. If, they probably got a little bit more freakier, as time went on, because they got to the point whereas that they didn't even care. It used to be secretly, where people used to go to, separate rooms and different rooms, and they wasn't doing that out in the public, but now they don't care. Men kissing men and all this other it's crazy.
So why do you think he was going to these parties?
I think that he's going to the Diddy parties, bruh. If he's going, we know he's going to the Diddy parties, and I know that it's, I know what usually happens at the Diddy party, or what we told us happened at the Diddy party.
Tyler Perry's clashes with unions go back years, and the disputes didn't stop with his writers. In 2015, the conflict reached another boiling point when two of the biggest unions in the business, SAG-AFTRA and Actors Equity, took a dramatic step. They banned their members from working on Perry's touring play Medea on the Run. The reason was clear. Perry's production company had refused to sign standard union contracts, which meant actors and crew would lose out on basic protections, benefits, and guarantees. For SAG-AFTRA and Actors Equity, this wasn't about paperwork, it was about protecting workers from being exploited in the name of profit. Their message was blunt: if Perry wasn't willing to play by fair labor rules, union talent wouldn't be allowed to work for him at all, and the criticism didn't stop with unions. First-hand accounts from actors who've worked on Perry's sets reveal just how grueling the environment can be. Brandon Jay, an actor and voice coach who appeared on Meet the Browns, went viral on TikTok after describing what it was really like behind the curtain. According to Jay, filming a single episode with Perry felt like a marathon compared to other productions. Scripts were frequently scrapped at the last minute, with entire scenes rewritten overnight. Instead of the weeks of rehearsal most productions allow, actors were expected to memorize pages of brand new dialogue in just hours. The pace was so unforgiving that, according to Jay, the rumor on set was simple: if you couldn't keep up, Perry wouldn't hesitate to fire you on the spot.
To that black man. So no, I was not blackballed. I was whiteballed. By some black who had no balls. Thank you, Mr. Lee Daniels. Thank you, Mr. Tyler Perry. Thank you, Miss Oprah Winfrey. No, baby, I wasn't blackballed. I had no balls. And see, I know they like to say, Monique, you talk too much. It would kill me not to say it. It would kill me not to say you are not paying me equally. You are not treating me fairly. So y'all can suck if I had one.
The story gets even more complicated when you hear what Brandon Jay revealed about his own experience with Perry. Jay originally auditioned for the role of a bullied high school student, fairly straightforward. But when Perry decided the script wasn't working, he rewrote the character on the spot. Suddenly, Jay's role was transformed into a gay teenager secretly harboring feelings for the very bully tormenting him. Jay admitted he wasn't prepared for that twist and immediately called his agent, who assured him he had no obligation to take the part if it made him uncomfortable. But Perry wasn't offering dialogue or collaboration, he was dictating. The role was to be played exactly as he envisioned it, with no room for pushback. In the end, Jay went through with the part, but his account revealed something bigger than long hours or tough working conditions. It exposed a culture of control, where Perry could flip the script literally and figuratively whenever he pleased. Behind the scenes, other whispers began to circulate. Some insiders claimed that young black men on Perry's payroll were expected to be available whenever he called, regardless of circumstances. To critics, it painted a picture less like a professional workplace and more like a one-man kingdom where no one dared question the ruler. This stands in stark contrast to Perry's public persona. To the outside world, he is the mogul who beat the odds, created thousands of jobs, and became a symbol of independence in Hollywood. But the testimonies suggest another side, one marked by union battles, actor exploitation, and blurred lines of power that many find troubling. The speculation only intensified when actor Christian Keyes posted a tearful Instagram video. In it, he claimed he had been targeted by a powerful man in the industry who boasted about keeping multiple young black men on his payroll. Though Keyes didn't name names, his nearly two-decade-long professional history with Perry, from Diary of a Mad Black Woman to All the Queen's Men, sparked immediate speculation online. Keyes even said he had collected evidence and handed it over to the police. While Perry's direct involvement remains unproven, the video added fuel to ongoing questions about how he wields his influence behind the scenes, and the controversies don't stop there. Perry has faced years of criticism for abruptly firing writers, relying on stereotypes, and pushing damaging portrayals of black women.
Mr. Perry comes in, everything changes. So we literally run the entire episode for him, and he hates it. Does that mean I have to learn a whole new script? Yes, that's what it means. Mr. Perry, on the spot, starts rewriting the entire script, and he's feeding me the lines to say, and the director is kind of standing on the side like, you better do it, because if not, they will fire you. Here is where the shoe hit the fan. So in the middle of Mr. Perry changing up the scenes, he says, you know, I want Jeffrey to be gay, and he has a crush on his bully. That's not what I auditioned for.
Cultural critic Jamila Lemieux once penned an open letter condemning his use of Medea, arguing that mocking the black matriarch for cheap laughs strips dignity from one of the most respected figures in black culture. Director Spike Lee echoed those concerns, famously blasting Perry's work as coonery and buffoonery that reinforced one-dimensional tropes. Then there's the recurring charge of colorism. Observers have noted that darker-skinned men in Perry's films are often cast as villains or abusers, while lighter-skinned or white characters are portrayed as heroes or saviors. Comedian Chris Rock once joked that if Tupac were alive and cast in a Tyler Perry film, he'd probably end up as the abusive dark-skinned boyfriend rather than the protagonist. It was a joke, but one that reflected real frustration about representation. This taps into a much deeper issue within Hollywood. From Hattie McDaniel being forced to sit at a segregated table at the 1940 Oscars to the more recent #OscarsSoWhite movement, the industry has a long, painful history of sidelining black talent and boxing them into stereotypes. Critics argue that Perry, despite his success and influence, perpetuates some of the same patterns, recycling roles where black women suffer and black men are reduced to toxic caricatures. Films like Acrimony and A Fall from Grace sparked heated debates online, with some fans defending Perry's work as a reflection of real struggles, while others condemned it for lacking balance and nuance. What makes this cycle harder to break, critics say, is Perry's tight grip on his empire. By rarely collaborating with other black writers or directors, he keeps his content confined to his own lens, one that many believe reinforces harmful tropes rather than challenging them. Even Dave Chappelle has questioned the prevalence of black male actors being pushed into dresses for laughs, framing it as a troubling Hollywood trend. Perry, of course, has built an empire on Medea, a character that both defined his career and continues to spark debate about stereotypes, respectability, and exploitation in black entertainment.